William Lee is the chief economist at the Milken Institute. He's also a former deputy division chief at the IMF. He's joining us from Henderson in the US state of Nevada. Thank you very much for your time. So IMF has cut the global and US growth forecast while also increasing the chance of a recession due to the US tariffs. What do you make of the latest forecast?
I think they did the right move. Given the current data of policy uncertainty, everyone's forecasts have been lowered. But I want to emphasize to your viewers that the IMF forecast for the United States was lowered from an unsustainable over 2% pace down to a more sustainable natural rate of growth of 1.8%. So that's still a very substantial pace of growth and no sign of recession. Even though the recession probabilities have gone up, they still remain well below 50%. So I think the perspective should be kept in mind that trade is very important for the rest of the world, which is why much of the world has been downgraded for fear that trade would actually be smaller than it was before. But for the United States, trade is not that important because imports are only 14% of GDP, exports are only 11% of GDP. So we see that the United States, being a relatively closed economy, as is Japan and several other countries, the impact of these tariffs are really smaller than a lot of people fear. But for the many emerging markets and places in the Middle East that are heavily dependent on commodity trade, the fears of changing trade flows is very substantial.
Okay, that's a really interesting point that you're making, and not one that we've heard often since Trump has launched the trade war. These IMF World Bank meetings have been touted as the most important since the 2008 global financial crisis. How much of a shadow then, given what you're saying, do you think the trade tariffs are casting over this meeting?
I think the trade talk, especially behind the scenes, behind closed doors, is probably the most important discussions we've had in several decades. And I'll tell you why. I think more and more policymakers are realizing that the trade system set up after World War II, WTO-based, multilateral agreement-based, is no longer satisfying the needs of many emerging markets and many of the countries like those in the Middle East, like in South America, like Brazil, that are coming into the middle class. They need to redesign the trading system. But no one has had the nerve to come out and say the greatest risk to the global trade right now is the system itself. The system is antiquated and no longer serves the needs of the 21st century trade. It was designed after World War II by the United States, which was the only large healthy economy at the time, but now we have blocks of countries that are much more healthy and trade more extensively with one another. And I think the redesign of that international trade system, which I believe is part of the agenda for President Trump in his Make America Great agenda of redesigning the system so that China, US, and the rest of the world would be better suited, that redesign has to take place. It will take place, I think, softly behind closed doors. The IMF has never admitted that this is the greatest source of systemic risk, but I believe most policymakers agree the current system is broken.
Well, how do you think it needs to be fixed? What needs to happen?
I think the agenda that is evolving are more regional agreements. China has gone into regional agreements with the Asian countries. The United States has gone into regional agreements with Mexico and Canada and Latin America, and also Middle East. Bilateral free trade agreements. Those are the ways I think the new system is being redesigned slowly, and I think more of these bilateral and regional deals is going to be better suited and also will take place faster. I mean, just imagine getting 30 or 40 countries together in a room the way President Biden tried to do and get these multilateral deals hammered together. It takes forever. And as you political scientists know out there, the tyranny of the minority, one country can hold up agreement to everyone. And then the dispute is never settled and you never get the agreement done. With bilateral agreements, they're much more flexible. They happen much more quickly, and I think that's the way of the future. And I think President Trump has been encouraging that by encouraging countries to come to the United States and make individual deals. The huge tariff barriers that he set up, the reciprocal tariffs, were designed to really get serious talking happening very quickly.
William Lee, it's been very interesting to get your thoughts on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.